Hi, I'm Renee Whitehouse, the Director of Property Management here at Harris Property.
And I'm Rachel, one of the property managers. Today we're kicking off the first part of a two-part series, Property Management, where we'll be discussing some important things to know as a property investor.
We'll be covering everything from setting the right rent to understanding your legal obligations.
So let's get started.
First up, one of the questions that we've received is, what are the most important factors to consider when setting the rental price for a property?
Good question. Well, definitely the rental market, the comparables within that area, the property itself is a huge one.
Yes.
I think a lot of people get a little bit, investors get confused when they're looking at comparables, but some might have more of a rundown property. Could be the same amount of bedrooms, same size, same bathrooms. However, the state of the property does make a big difference. Whether or not it's in the same location or same bedrooms. So
yep.
That's a huge
And
one.
what would you do if an owner, if you suggest a price, for example, and the owner isn't comfortable with that, they want to try for a little bit more, how would you discuss that with them? What would you advise?
Look, I would always give my advice. However, I'm there to work with the client, for the client, and we can always try. We gotta always try. You never know. There could be someone out there that completely is happy for that amount. And if we can still aim for the top and what they suggest, it doesn't hurt to try the highest amount. However, we have the tools to move it if it's not moving.
Exactly.
So if no one's interested, we can just edit the price and advertise it and move forward. So,
and if someone wanted to do that at a higher rate, I would only give it a week or two and monitor the feedback and inquiry levels that come through.
Absolutely. And the next question, what should landlords know about the eviction process and how to handle it?
Good question.
Yeah.
So I can answer it in a few different ways. Are you talking about rent arrears and if someone falls behind, what that process is, or if someone wants to move into a property and what the time frame is, or if they need to sell it?
I think rent arrears is a good one because it is, unfortunately, it's quite common. And then, let's go rent arrears and then what to go with that and how to go with that process, because that is a common one, especially with lockdown and everything that happened. And
yes. So with rent arrears in Victoria, if a tenant reaches 15 days behind, that is when we issue them a breach notice.
Yep.
And they have 2 weeks to pay their rent that has been overdue before an eviction notice or a warrant of possession is issued.
Right.
For a warrant of possession to be obtained, you have to go through a process of a VCAT hearing. Unfortunately, I'm going through a process at the moment for a client where the tenant has fallen quite significantly behind. We've followed our due diligence and done all the correct notice issuing, but we are still yet to hear back from VCAT with an actual hearing date. Because it's an urgent hearing, we would usually expect a hearing date to be set within a few weeks.
Okay, so that's a sort of stock standard time frame. And because it's a high priority, it is urgent, it will go up there.
Yes.
Time frame can be about 2 weeks, 2 to 3 weeks,
depending on the VCAT backlog.
Yeah.
But I should also mention that whilst the tenant is still residing in the property, they haven't vacated, they still haven't paid any rent. The rent is accruing, so it's not as though that the tenant only has to pay the arrears that was on that particular notice that we issued initially. They have to pay rent up until the actual hearing date, and if whatever the outcome is, if the member at VCAT grants the warrant of possession and the tenant then has to return keys within a week or so, they pay rent up until that final end date.
Wow. And the tenant is in there now and not obviously responding?
And not paying.
Have you heard from them?
Unfortunately, no.
Wow.
Yeah.
And you've reached out to family members and because that's a big one.
Yeah.
Because obviously we're aware people are people. Anything could happen.
Yeah. And throughout this time, the owner's still having to pay their mortgage.
Yeah, I know. And a lot of people don't think about that either. So,
yeah.
Ooh. While we're on the topic, Renee, of eviction, what is the process, or is it similar if the landlord is wanting to sell the property?
There is a set process that we need to follow. So if a tenant's on a fixed lease agreement, the owner can sell the property whilst the tenant is in there because the lease agreement forms part of the contract of sale. But in order for us to send the tenant a notice, It's called a notice of intention to sell. So on that notice, it actually stipulates the tenant's rights that they can vacate the property with only 2 weeks' notice, even though they're on a fixed lease, if the owner does decide to sell. So that's the only downside, I guess, for the owner. If they're still relying on the income, they have to be mindful that the tenant can vacate. Also with that, the owner must pay the tenant compensation now for every open for inspection that is conducted, which is also listed on that particular notice that we issue the tenant.
Yeah. Wow. And do you know what the cost point is roughly?
Of what the inspections would
be?
Yeah, so just say their rent is $500 a week. You divide that by 7 to work out what the daily rate is, and then you half that amount.
Okay.
So if there's a 4-week sales campaign and there's 2 inspections done over that period, that would be 8 open for inspections. You do the math.
Yep, okay. And I know, even in my experience with you, I know some landlords like to also give gifts or thank you, because obviously the tenants are still living in the property.
Yeah, it's an inconvenience
for them. There's lots of inspections coming in and out, and then for everyone to be on the same page and work together, maintaining the property in a selling standard.
Yes.
It's got to look good.
Yes.
And sometimes that can be really difficult as a property manager, sales agents. We're not all working together under the same agency. So we really need to make sure that there's like an agreement and a respect level there for everyone involved. So I know some landlords like to, on top of the fee.
Some owners like to gift more.
Yeah.
A lump sum. We had an owner one day recently give the tenant, it was a couple of $1,000s.
Oh, that's nice.
As opposed to, if it was $500 a week times 8 opens, I think that's about $400 odd.
Yeah.
In a red credit for them. So
my
maths isn't that good without a calculator. But it's just a bit of an incentive, I guess, for the tenants to have the property presented in the best light to make the process as seamless and smooth as possible.
Yeah, all that. No, that's good. Okay, interesting. Yeah. It's a note for everyone out there. So what if the landlords want to move into the property?
In Victoria, it's a bit tricky because if they are on a set fixed lease, they're not able to move in until the end of the lease. So we have to issue the tenant with a notice to vacate 60 days prior to the lease expiring to coincide with that time frame.
Okay, interesting. And it is different in every state.
It is,
That's why you say Victoria?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. Thank you.
Great. Another question that we've been asked.
Hit me, Renee.
What are the key steps in the tenant screening process to ensure reliable renters?
Okay, so we receive digital applications, obviously after the inspection. People even apply even if they haven't physically been to the inspections. So what we do with that, the prospective tenants follow the prompts. So documents, which will be identification, it'll be your pay slips, it will be your current work references, your previous work references, which we follow up, or they will contact us because they get prompted to the references. Current living references as well, and keep in mind, not everybody has current living references because they may still be at home. They've only lived at home, so their parents may have a shout out in there and mention, what their kids are like living with. But, we consider everyone because everyone needs to start somewhere. So Absolutely. It doesn't matter if they've got a living reference or not. But we'll obviously discuss that with them. We do look at platforms as well. So we look at LinkedIn and other social media platforms. Some people, do have some photos. There could be pets as well. So the pets have applications, which is super cute sometimes.
Love a pet resume.
Yeah, me too. It's definitely our fave. I think anything like that. The more information, the better. And one that I do find, people who have their own businesses, they sometimes, I guess, depending on how everyone's got their businesses sort of laid out differently. So they may have their accountant as a reference, which is a really good one. Or I may suggest if they feel like they don't have anything to give, or they may not have their own pay slips, they just get paid. So they really struggle. So we kind of educate them and guide them when they do apply. Okay, well, do you have your accountant's details? We can contact them. What's your ABN? What's your business? Sometimes they just don't think to even put in their business information.
Give us your website so we can check out what your business looks like.
Check out the website as well. Maybe if it's something we can purchase off there, we'll do that too.
What about if a potential tenant is applying and they own a property?
That's a good one. Yeah. So if we do have a tenant that is applying and they are a landlord as well themselves, or they could be potentially moving and then they're going to become an investor. Obviously, we offer our services and see if we can help them if it's in the
or
same
if they're
state.
selling it.
And if they could be selling. I recently had that where I had some tenants that were selling their property in Tasmania and then moving to Queensland. So that's another one. I spoke to their sales agent as a reference, and I got it online. I got to see what it looked like,
how it was presented. Copy of the contract. If it's been sold, then you can see the settlement date and whatever it sold for.
Yep, that's another great one as well, because I think some people think, I've been a landlord, I've owned my property. Yeah. That's,
it's not going to look good on their application where it's the actual opposite.
Yeah, for sure. Renee.
Yes.
How do you handle emergency maintenance requests?
Good question. A lot of the properties that we manage are near new, so the majority of the time they're still under a builder's warranty. So our first point of call would be to contact the builder to report the issue. If that's no longer under warranty, then obviously my first point of call would be to contact the owner just to discuss what the situation is. If I'm unable to get in touch with the owner, and depending on the level of an emergency, i.e. if it's a burst hot water system that happened a couple of weeks ago, we would action straight away, try all avenues to get in touch with the owner, text message, calls, emails, just to let them know the situation. But given the state of the situation, it is high priority that we have to action it within 24 to 48 hours.
Yeah, because it really does depend on what is considered an emergency. I do find that's, I think, again, a lot of tenants will identify something as an emergency where
it's actually not.
That's a whole nother topic.
Yeah, they may feel that it's urgent for them, which is completely understandable.
Absolutely.
But at the end of the day, we need to follow the legislation.
Yeah, and there is a legislation, and we obviously need to do our due diligence. We need to respectfully check with the landlord as well to get things cross-checked and approved. But then there's, again, as you said, bursted hot water system emergency. So, thanks.
No worries. Okay, Rach. Last question for this video.
Okay.
How do you ensure a positive tenant-landlord relationship throughout the lease term?
It's great being the middleman.
It is a bit like that sometimes.
Yeah, it does. Of course, communication is key with everything. However, I think it's up to us as the middlewoman, to educate the landlords and the tenants. I think sometimes we find, even when we're doing routine inspections, I would say, tenants maybe don't realise even their place and their communication point and what they're meant to share and express with us to the property manager. We go there and check the property, and there could be things that we've noticed in that time frame they've been there. Why haven't you told us? Just let us know. We'll try to fix this. Some tenants don't realise that they can actually let us know, and we can try to fix it together. And then we're obviously there to be the communicator when we can see it ourselves, but to educate the tenants that, as well as the landlord. So we do the routine inspections, and if we've seen something, we can suggest things.
Yes, exactly.
This wall needs a paint job, or this carpet is needing a change, or there's actually no screen door and there needs to be ventilation and airflow, and it's hot again in other different states. There's no lock. There wasn't one, or if we've inherited the property from another agency and we've now come in and seen some things that we would recommend and suggest. Keeping the tenant happy, where they might not even think they're within their right to even ask questions, and they might not, but it's also up to us to educate the landlord to service the tenants in a comfortable, safe environment too. So I think, that communication is huge, and just educating everyone involved.
Thanks for joining us today. We hope you found our answers helpful.
If you have any more questions and want to learn more, visit our website below or give us a call.
We're here to make sure your property is in safe hands. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel to see part 2 of our property management series.
See you next time.